We are going to start our next talk, so I'd like to invite our guests to come on stage. Do you want me to introduce you? We've got Janet and Amy, who are here from the Eagle River Community Support Society. Woo, you guys can come. You might need another chair.
I could get another chair. I could stand.
And we've got Joel Torrens from the Salvation Army Lighthouse. We've got Vallheri from Second Harvest. And then we've got Patti Thurston from the Shuswap Family Center. And today we're having a panel discussion on, generally on food security in the community. So these are a lot of our on-the-ground community services that provide food support to people who need it. And we're going to start just for them to give a brief introduction of their organization and maybe some of the things that they are noticing around food security within the clients that they serve.
Hello. My name is Janet McLean-Senft. As introduced, I'm the Executive Director of Eagle Valley Community Support Society in Sicamous. We serve Sicamous and Malacca area primarily with food bank services, but we also run a senior support program that operates in every community of the Shuswap and Chase and Enderby, and so we have a food security piece of that program as well. So we started to see some fairly big changes in who our clients were, what the needs were during COVID. There was a lot of families that were suddenly out of work, and many of them had never used food bank programs before or food security programs. And so over the last couple of years, we've really shifted how we think about food security. We have never been a food security program that was the traditional, like food hamper where people, can come only at certain times and stand in a lineup. Ours has always been, it's open all the same hours that our resource centers are open. We have one in Sicamous and one in Malacca. And so we have tried really hard to shift more towards education, more towards nutrition education, and to supporting the other meals programs that happen in our community. And we're building a commercial kitchen in our own facility to be able to create better nutrition so that we're not giving out so much like high sodium, high sugar, canned and processed food, focused a lot more on local. We get a lot of donations from local farmers now, and so there's much more. There's been a big shift from the idea of like food bank type of food security to more, food education. And I always say that food poverty is not. It is not related to income. Food poverty has more to do with a family's understanding of the nutrition needs of their children. It very often is in families that are middle income and above. And so we've really focused on broadening that in our community in the last couple of years, and there's been a great response. And the sort of only, the big increase in numbers has continued, but we do work more directly in programs. We send food to programs. We send people, to meals and that sort of thing more than we do the traditional hamper. Our hamper numbers a few years ago used to be around 200. They are now at around, we have about 500 files, and Sicamous is not a very large community. Sicamous and Malacca combined have a population of only around 4,500. But to us, it shows that people know to come forward when they're hungry, and that's a good thing. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll get Joel to come up next.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of the same things that you're seeing in Sicamous here in Salmon Arm. The education piece is such a big part of it, because we, for the last couple of years, we've had a community food forest. It's our community garden, it's on our property, because we want people to have unrestricted access to healthy, fresh produce. And one of the things that we're really seeing, especially this year, is the education piece of knowing when to pick it, how to pick it, what to do with it. All of those pieces are things that we still need to work on. So we're taking some similar steps, actually. I'm sure you're a little bit further down the road, but we're working on getting a commercial kitchen built so that we can further that education, learn ourselves and teach others more about what can we do with this produce, because that's where, yeah, everything you've said, Jan, I don't know that I have a lot to say that you haven't already covered. So the food education is such a key thing. How do we, we're so used to at the food bank getting the things that are easy, that are popular, and those aren't necessarily the things that are good for you. A mac and cheese, a can of soup, things like that. Those are the kind of the go-tos at the food bank in a lot of people's minds when we go around during the food drives and pick up the paper bags at people's doors. That's what we see. We see Hamburger Helper. We see all those things, and those are really helpful to have, and they really mean a lot to families that only have so much time to begin with, but that isn't setting a good nutritional baseline. So we're trying to figure out how can we not only provide more nutritional food, but provide that education so you know what you can do with it and have the opportunity to find creative ways to make that a part of your family's regular diet. So yeah, a lot of challenges, and we're having to look at the way that we deliver food to meet the increasing demand and the fluctuating donations and things like that. But education is really the number one thing that we're working on, trying to figure out how to provide people with food, provide education about food, and then create a baseline of food skills for people to grow their own gardens, to make connections, to explore things like preserving, canning, meal prep, things like that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Joel. And we've got Vallheri from Second Harvest.
Thank you. My name is Vallheri Semeniuk, and I'm from Second Harvest. We don't use the word food bank any longer because we are trying to create dignity amongst the people who come to the food bank. There is a real attitude toward food banks. People think it's for poor people. They think it's for people who are down and out. A certain amount of that is true, but what we are seeing more and more all the time is Salmon Arm, for instance, is a very expensive place to live, and people who have lived here all their lives can no longer afford to live here. And we've approached it with saying to them, you find a place to live, and that is our job, to feed you. We've introduced meat protein every week. We buy all fresh vegetables. We've been very, very fortunate to have donations from the Shuswap Community Garden and a number of other people who grow a row for us, and a lot of individual home gardeners who also grow vegetables for us. They even say, what is it you need? What can we grow? Recently, we have changed our hours. We used to be open 2 days a week. We are now open 1 day a week. We were open for 1.5 to 2 hours on a Wednesday and a Friday. We now are open 10 till 6 on Wednesday because we can't put the number of people through in that short a period. We're turning people away. We are doing 275 families a week at Second Harvest. We don't provide hampers. They come in and they shop like they're in a food store, and that's another way we're trying to reduce the stigma of a food bank. We've got working families, we've got seniors, we've got disabled people. Many of Joel's clients are our clients as well, because they can't live on one little bag of food for a week. It's impossible. And the cost to live here is so significant and much higher than it was perhaps 10 years ago when they started their families or came to this area. So they've now got to access many of the services that are offered in Salmon Arm just to be able to feed their families. So we too are looking at ways to try and help our community and our clients to feel better about coming. If they have special needs, we're happy to be able to look for look for various things that we can bring in for them. We do a lot of gluten-free people with special dietary aids. So we're really working to make this their store. We do not want it recognized as a food bank because we don't consider ourselves a food bank. We're very fortunate there that we have such a generous community here in Salmon Arm. We receive food and funding all the time, constantly coming in the door. And if you've ever been to Second Harvest, we are one room in a storeroom, and we've been there 30 years. It's like a little garage. So we're really working very hard to try to accommodate that great number of people, allow them access to services for 8 hours on one day. This may work, it may not. If it doesn't, then we have to go back to the drawing board. But again, we're trying to give people options. I listened to Brad DeMille's speech this morning, and it's frightening what's happening out there. Not only are people not able to buy food, but the price of food is going up even for us who are purchasing. We do get discounts, but it's amazing the costs that are going up and how much people are trying to supplement their existing food purchases through coming to places like Second Harvest and the Salvation Army, and even people that go to the Family Resource Center. We all work pretty much with the same group of people, and we all offer them a little different thing that they need in their life. So we really are hoping that things settle down, numbers reduce, but I'm afraid after listening to Brad, I don't believe that's going to happen because he sees things going even higher and higher. We are trying to minister to a lot of these people to try to help them understand how to live their life so that it's not so complex, so that they can grow their own food, so that they can put in a garden. We've left a lot of that to the Salvation Army because we don't have a facility that allows us to sort of expound on that with our clientele. But we can certainly hand out a lot of information that we have on our resource wall, things that will allow them to understand or go to places who can help them further with their needs. That's about all I have to say. We're very much similar to the Salvation Army. We operate differently. They do hampers, we do like a food store. Thank you.
Thank you, Vallheri. And we've got Patti from the Shuswap Family Center.
Hello, everybody. I can mirror everything that's been said and not really add much more. I work with all of these people. Our attachment goes to Malacqua, Enderby, and the Squilux Bridge. We work quite close with Food Action with the Community Teaching Garden, which is, about 200 pounds of food a week? Sorry. Is that better? About 200 pounds of food a week that we're bringing in. Vallheri consistently provides for families that need special diets and seniors that can't make it to stand in the lineup. I think the biggest thing we've all noted and shared was the people that were donating are now in our lineups. And that's the reality of the cost of living in Salmon Arm, housing, rent, all of that. What I did note in a positive this year, post-pandemic, because that also set us back, the pandemic and community connection, is people wanted to learn how to grow this year, and we had lost that traction. So seeing people wanting to grow and maybe getting more people involved in the garden and the forest garden is what we need. And we also need more volunteers at our Good Food Box. I think the average age there must be 70, and they're packing out food. And if you don't know about the Good Food Box program, it's a paid program for $15, about $25 of produce every month. I supply 25 to the community free that I buy because of our Scotia McLeod gives us quite a sum of money every year, so that's how I pay back that money. Again, I'm mirroring everything that we're saying. I'm part of the Rotary as well, and we're trying to put on a wine festival, and it's when it hit home about the freeze in the spring and the smoke now, our vineyards are suffering. So them being a farm girl, I went and I live in a little lovely place called Glen Eden, so my garden did really well this year. But then I was thinking on a bigger scale, wow, I think we're really faced with some interesting challenges this winter coming. We've got 176 homes burned across the lake, and they're going to come to us, all of us. So we're really going to have to come together as a community and be connected and figure this out, and we're going to be doing it by the seat of our pants, is how I see it. So, thank you.
And we actually have one other guest who joined us, and I didn't ask her if she wanted to speak, but I'm going to put her on the spot, because that's what I do sometimes. And she is from a PAC, so she's a PAC president, and she helps run the school meal programs at her school, and they do a phenomenal job, and I just maybe wanted you to speak on like a parent perspective on this.
Sure. Hi. Yeah, I'm PAC president at Parkview. We came to the community a year and a half ago, my daughter and I. I'm a single parent, and I have struggled in the past. So I wanted to bring a voice to the school that, you know, even though we can appear that we're doing well, we have money, we're struggling, a lot of us. So they were running a breakfast program where the kids would come down to the kitchen and they would come out of their classrooms and they would get fed away from the rest of the school. So what we're trying to do now is make it all-encompassing, so we don't have a label on the kids. They can grab their breakfast in the morning, they can head to class, they're not segregated, there's no shame, and we want to educate the parents. So we're looking at doing a lot more this year, and I'm getting involved with the high school, and it's all really exciting. But again, it's brand new, so yeah. Thanks.
And I am here, of course, from Shuswap Food Action Society, and we, firmly believe that everyone has the right to a healthy diet, and that's sort of what we're working towards. And we try to fill in the gaps where other organizations can't do, and so we do focus a lot on education, and we focus a lot on making farming economically viable profession in the Shuswap. Because if there aren't people growing your food, then you're in trouble. So one of our big things we wanted to talk about today is clearly food security is a growing issue in our communities. We're all feeling the rising cost of living, which is squeezing people's food budgets to be smaller and smaller, but the cost of food is rising higher and higher. And so right now, what I wanted to reflect on or get your guys' opinion on is, we talk about a lot about how this needs, government is going to at some point need to step in here. Because as charities, we have access to very little funding. We're basically dependent on the generosity of the public. And that isn't a very sustainable answer to something as important and as severe as food insecurity in our community. So what are some things that you think that municipal government or provincial government could do to support having more food secure communities?
Public fruit trees. This is something that exists in some of the European nations where it all used to be, feudal properties, and landowners had their own orchards. Well, that system, that way of society functioning doesn't exist anymore, but the trees are still there, and now they're on public land. And so they've written it into their bylaws that, help yourself to that fruit that you're walking by. So that's something I've been very excited about. They did a pilot program in Lethbridge, Alberta, that I haven't checked in on, but that's just my quick go-to answer, public fruit trees.
Well, on the subject of public fruit trees, Sicamous is a community that has gotten very engaged in, our local government's gotten very engaged in what they can do to help. And we have replaced, we still have lovely flower pots because the tourists like our community have lovely flower pots in the summer. But along with those, as you're walking down Main Street in Sicamous, you can pick raspberries, you can pick plums, you can pick Ascap berries. They're all out in front of the beach park. As you enter the beach park, there are borders there that have tomatoes and strawberries and that kind of thing in it. So people really like that. I think that's definitely a step in the right direction in terms of awareness. And I know that it costs a lot of extra money for the Works Department to look after those beds every year, so it's appreciated. Another thing that they did to support us was put in the Communities in Bloom group, put in a community garden in a space that's going to become low-income housing. And it's just there on the main street, and there's a sign there that says you can go play in the garden if you want to, and you can do some weeding, and you can also take anything that's there to eat. So I think we're getting there in our community in terms of engagement, but local government needs to have a lot more knowledge and a lot more awareness about the needs. Sort of the piece that they miss is who needs help. There isn't. If you own a home in Sicamous, and there's the homeowners grants and there are those things, but there needs to be more of an exploration in every community for how to support people better with the things that they do have to pay for. Things like water tolls there are no programs that support with having to pay for your water. There are no tax support programs other than homeowners grant. And so for a lot of families, they are constantly making choices about food or power, food or taxes. And so I think it's municipal governments need to engage in programs that support families that are food insecure, and public fruit trees is certainly, all those kinds of things are a step in the right direction, but I do think that it is also about financial support to organizations that provide. It's about financial support directly to the taxpayers in the community and to renters. I mean, there are a lot of challenges with renting, and so our government hasn't yet gotten engaged in any of the things that are connected to poverty. And because we are a community that has a large tourism employment, and it is seasonal, we have many, many people who work in our community and serve all year long, or all summer long, from May to October, and then struggle all winter. And we're, it's a kind of under the ground thing. We're a community where there are some immensely wealthy people who own homes in our community and come there for the summer months. So we have some wealthy retired people in our community, but we aren't yet talking about what the rest of it means and what it looks like, and as a community, how do we support it from the government down.
Well, and I think one thing that comes with that is just this idea of tourism, right, in the Shuswap. I mean, tourism was really down this year because of the fires, clearly, and then Sicamous had fires not very long ago, and this, I think tourism, as putting all our eggs in the tourism basket, I think that tourism idea is changing, and that, there's going to be continuous climate situations that make tourism not the best industry for us to depend on.
And I have a feeling, I'm going to ask you guys about this. We receive a lot of support from our local grocery stores, from Askew's, from Save-On, and that's what we feel. And they really come to the table. So I want to echo what I've heard from everyone today is we get a lot of support, from business owners, from local people, and I just would love to see food security be more of a priority for our local and provincial government, because they're there and they are thankful for everything we do, and we get a lot of encouragement from them, but I'd love to really just see it become a priority issue alongside some of the other crises that we're facing.
And just to speak on that, I one of the big focuses of Shuswap Food Action is local food, and the reason, one of the big reasons we support local food is that local people support local organizations. So, a lot of us, to save money, drive to other communities to shop at larger stores. And the moment you spend money at those stores, all that money leaves generally our country, right? By the end of the business day. Whereas, when you're supporting people like, we had DeMills and Askews, those are companies that are employing people in our community. And by turn, they're spending their money in our community. And they say that for every dollar you spend on local food is actually equals $2. So in the local economy. We are really challenging people. I know it's hard when you go to the grocery store and the local food costs more. I know that's hard. I feel that. But it actually supports twice as many people every time that you can support it. So that's, one of our big messages.
And at the schools, we do have some amazing donors in our community that donate to the breakfast program specifically. But the rest of the money has to be made from fundraising. So we're asking parents that are already struggling now to give us time and money to go towards the programs to feed these already struggling families. So we need more support from the government to do that, so we don't put the onus back on the families that are already having a hard time.
Joel's nervous because he's jumping up so much. I think I have to say very similarly. It's important. We've gone to the well many, many times asking our communities to support us, to support the people in our community that need assistance. But we need to have a bigger, broader, better plan than just a few agencies trying to support this volume of people. We need more government, not intervention, but we need assistance. We need them to sit up and pay attention to what we're saying about growing your own gardens, providing land for people to go and grow their own gardens. We have a couple of spots here in town where people can go and can plant, and I see them every day when I'm walking my dog, harvesting, watering, looking after it. If the land was available and provided to people to maybe grow a row for themselves, I think that could be quite a successful program. And I think a lot of people would learn from that. But where's the land? And that's where we need the cities and the community, municipalities to kick in and give us some support.
Yeah, so I also think that it should be the policies, I hate microphones. It should be written into the fabric of every community. It should be in your policies and procedures. It should be about wanting to feed your community. Not all our seniors can make it to the gardens, and some of our people with physical disabilities can't make it and do it, but they deserve to have good, healthy food. So it should just be part of the fabric. It should be in all of the legislation as far as I'm concerned, municipal level, the provincial level, and the federal level. We're not asking for money. I mean, we always are, but we're asking for changing the light on it, like feed your people. It's quite simple. We're taxed to the max. I mean, we're paying tax every time we turn around, so why are people going without food? So yes, I do think government needs to get involved. Thank you.
The only other thing that I would add to that is that I recognize that in my municipality, many things have happened in the past few years that have shifted. Local government in my community has worked really hard at becoming aware of what the challenges are, but they also need to have support. They need to have support coming down from the federal government, coming down from the provincial government. For instance, I'm thinking that like the Federal Department of Agriculture, they have these funding opportunities, but they don't. They're out there for farmers. Sometimes some of them are out there for nonprofits. But communities like mine that have land in the ALR right on the edge of our community, where you could put 150 greenhouses to help feed your community, should be able to access funding to be able to do that. And we should be looking at how do communities like Sicamous transition from a tourism economy, because, for instance, greenhouses could be used and could employ people all year long. And so it has to come, as Patti said, all the way from our federal government down, this priority of feeding our country.
Thank you. And the next question that I was wanting, or last question I wanted to focus on, because, I mean, we're all feeling a little bit sad and depressed whenever we look at our news feed or turn on the TV or listen to the radio. And I'm a hopeful person by nature. And so what is one thing that gives you hope for the future?
These people right here, all you people that have come today, because there's a lot of us, we're quiet, that want to see change. So I see that in our community, and we just have to come together and be connected. Like I was saying, the one hopeful thing I see is more people wanting to grow food. That was a treat, because we struggle getting people out to grow food. So I see that too.
I like to think of stories when I'm trying to say what gives me hope, and I know that our food forest, it requires community support to exist. You know, we need people there watering and weeding and harvesting and turning over compost. And this year, one of the coolest things for me has been to see our community come together in a way that it just doesn't happen very often, where we see some of the people who are in the vulnerable population, who are unhoused, working alongside the people that just love gardening and want to be a part of it. So to see them working together on a common goal, establishing another kind of community there, where people are coming together for food production, to care for still more people. The way that community can be built through food production is what gets me excited.
What gives me hope is I've been at this a very long time, so I've been executive director for 23 years of the Support Society. What gives me hope is when we work with a family that is really struggling, and in the beginning of our relationship with them, it is primarily food security, or maybe it's housing security, and so we work our way. Sometimes it's mental health concerns, and you work your way with a family through processes that help to stabilize them. And when you get to the point where that family comes into the center with produce that they grew in their garden to be able to give to you, and are sort of really excited about what they've learned and where they're going, and their lives are seeming, more stable, that gives me hope. And the other thing that gives me hope is the number of caring people in my community. I mean, there are enormous numbers of caring people out there who really want to see that people are fed and cared for.
I see excitement in the kids' eyes when, for instance, last year we made a soup out of the garden, and it was pink because it was made with beets and all the vegetables. And some parents said, my kid's not going to eat that. And we went in, and these kids were so excited, they were asking for more soup before they'd even finished their bowl. So the fact that we're going forward and doing more of that at the schools just gives me a lot of hope and a lot of excitement.
Well, I think one of the things that gives me great hope is that, very similar to what others have said, people who have accessed services 20, 25 years ago are suddenly now bringing in food consistently, offering financial funding, and they really are so appreciative for everything that's happened to them. They've had a hard life, but they realize this was a very important savior for them in a lot of cases, to be able to not have to worry about food and where it was coming from. So I think that people coming back and doing what was happening to them or for them 20 years ago, it's becoming very, very evident that people still have a heart and they are still thinking about others besides themselves.
And to end with a similar story, one of our programs is, we call it the Family Box program, but we work with a school district and we get names of families that are struggling. And we make these boxes of food that are sourced locally. And so some of these families have been on the program for a couple of years, and I go check in at the beginning of every year to see how they're doing. And this year, one of the families is like, you know what? I don't need your program anymore, but I want to be one of your volunteers. Which, you know, that's, of course, the heartwarming story, right? Is that, you know, they could have taken the program and they don't need it anymore, and now they're going to volunteer with our organization. And we also had a few families who were like, you know what, I'm going to give my box up to one of the evacuee families. And, you know, like, so people who are struggling. Like, and I know this particular person, I almost wanted to be like, no, please just keep the box. Because I know their situation, but, you know, they really wanted someone else to have it. So you know, when people who don't have a lot are giving, you know, that's also very heartwarming. Because it just shows that, you know, you don't have to be rich to be a generous person. And I think a lot of the generous people in our community are not the rich ones. So anyway, we feel very grateful for those stories. Okay, so I'm going to move it out to the audience for some questions. So does anyone in the audience have any questions? Or they can be thoughts or comments or things that inspire you.
I've got more of a comment.
Yeah?
Like, when you mentioned looking for government subsidies and money from the government, and we've all talked about that for years, but we keep waiting for it.
Yeah.
So I think we really need to band together as communities and try to get the community engagement coming more and work on it ourselves.
I actually,
it just keeps going.
yeah, and I actually think, you know, food security is going to have to be a line, like a budget line in every municipal government. It's going to have to be a taxable budget line because the numbers are just, you know.
Because we have the community engagement. That exists. We have an incredible community. And we just want there to be more involvement. So.
Yeah, but you're right. We you know, there does need to be some kind of sustainable funding source for this work. It can't just be, because you can't, as a large organization, it's really hard to make a budget every year when you don't know how much is going to be donated to your organization, right? Like you can't really do any of that long-term planning because you have no idea. Like for us, we, you know, our largest fundraiser of the year is what we depend on for a lot of our programs. And you know, if it does badly one year, or if, you know, the weather's bad, or you know, more people are struggling, like then we have to tell these families, you know, we can't actually help you any longer, which is you know, that hurts emotionally and physically. Yes.
Yeah, it's really nice to see the cooperation with everybody and understanding that there's a lot of different community organizations that are sort of working together to address the problem. And one of the things you guys talked about was education, educating the people. I think that education needs to be taken a step farther, and educating people so when we vote for our local government, that we put people in there that have the same thoughts as we do, looking after our community, because then the government will start helping more.
Yeah, so the comment there was just, that we need our local government to be, our elected officials to be people who show that they're caring, they're listening to their community and they're caring for the people in their community. And like Patti said, I think part of the problem is a lot of the people who are struggling don't have the capacity to complain. Like they got so many other things they're worried about that they're not even engaged in the whole municipal election process, and so their views are not being represented right now, I don't think. Okay, any last questions, comments? All right, well, we'd like to thank you guys all for attending, for coming, and please check out all the booths, and all these organizations have websites. So just to refresh, so we had the Shuswap Family Center, we have Second Harvest, we've got Salvation Army Lighthouse, we've got Parkview Elementary PAC, and the Eagle River Community Support Society. Eagle Valley, sorry, Eagle Valley. Eagle Valley, and we are Shuswap Food Action Society. So thank you.